I tend to think about different tech we have in our country and how we are always looking to have the next best thing, whether it's 3D LED TVs, tablet computers, or now even quad-core smartphones. We always seem to want things that increase our productivity and make our lives more convenient. There are many companies that create new, innovative products for consumers, such as Apple, by reinventing the smartphone in 2007 and then the tablet 3 years later. But one of my favorite things, cars, have only seen small changes, and that's in things like safety, power, and style. Now don't get me wrong, I love a sleek car, and I'm not saying that safety isn't important, but let's face it, nowadays MPGs matter. With increasing gas prices and the issues of carbon emissions, car manufacturers are starting to build hybrid vehicles to lessen the use of gasoline. But that's only a partial solution, and besides our politicians, who really only partially solves the problem. Even though reducing the use of foreign oil is a good start, think about how it would feel to be completely eradicate our use of foreign oil. It all starts with electric vehicles. The pros and cons of EVs can be argued from environmental and economic perspectives. They don't use oil, they don't produce CO2 emissions, but they require very expensive batteries, and almost all of the electricity to power the cars comes from burning coal. But understand why we are switching over to EVs and why it is important for our future. We have to realize how dependent we are on oil. Cycles of high gas prices and higher gas prices hurt, and we end up paying more and more for oil, and only OPEC countries will see any benefits. I'm sure everyone wants to feel completely independent of oil, and more importantly, see the face on the oil execs after we royally screw them by making their black gold worthless. EVs could definitely help us do that and a whole lot more. The average person in the US drives about 13,000 miles a year, and there's about 200 million cars in the US. Now, if we do the math, that means we drive about 2.6 trillion miles a year. And being optimistic and saying that we get about 25 miles per gallon for every car, we use about 100 billion gallons of fuel. At $3.75 a gallon, which is about the average across the nation, fueling would cost us about $1,700 a year. Now, $1,700 a year. That's cool. That's good. But now let's think about electric vehicles. Now, these work a little bit differently. You get about 4 miles per kilowatt hour. So, with 4 miles per kilowatt hour, driving 2.6 trillion miles a year, that means we use about 650 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. Now that's a lot of energy. But at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, it would only cost us 65 billion. And across all our cars, it would turn out to be $325 a car. Now, 1,700, 325, that's a difference of $13.75 a year. But of course, you can't forget that electric vehicles cost about $4,000 more than similar gas-powered vehicles after federal and state tax credits. So I feel like the payback time would be about 3 years to break even before you start bringing home that extra bacon. Now let's talk about the environmental aspect. Each gallon of gas burned puts about 9 kilograms of CO2 into the atmosphere. Now, comparatively, burning coal puts about 1 kilogram of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So, let's see, 9 kilograms of CO2 with 100 billion gallons. That means with gas we put 900 billion kilograms of CO2, and with electric vehicles we would only put 650 billion kilograms. Now going from here to here, that's a 27% decrease. 27%. Great. When's the last time you got excited about 27%? In Vegas, saying I only lost 27%. In school, I only got a 27% on my test? No. Now, what if all of this electricity were to be produced from a solar energy source? 100% reduction of CO2. It might be expensive, but with all the money that we save from not buying gasoline and oil, it would be relatively cheap. Zero emissions and cheap. That's what's up. Now I want you to look at this chart comparing a gasoline car to a solar electric car. Peter Norby has been driving an all-electric version of the 1 Series BMW called the Active-E, and the all-new electric by BMW called the Mini-E. It occurred to him one day that about 5 years ago, why not harvest the sun's energy? He then went out and put $8,000 and a 10 by 10 solar panel on his roof to generate between 3,000 and 3,400 kilowatt hours per year. Now this can produce about 12,000 miles for your car. This guy and his family in the last 3 years have put about 40,000 miles all electric and all solar on their cars. It might be difficult for many people to put up the upfront investment for this expensive equipment, but like all investments, it pays off over time. Now I wonder, why can't the government or private companies help out and do something? I mean, look at the chart. Driving on solar for 50 years would cost about $12,000, while gasoline over the same period of time would cost $275,000. Now, how does it affect your views as a consumer and a voter? Because no matter what your political views are, I know that money influences almost all decisions. There will be haters in every situation, and people will make other arguments, and they have made other arguments about electric vehicles. But if cost were the only issue, and most of the time it is, government investments would need to be made to make EVs more viable. The only way that EVs will become more prominent is through government subsidies and incentives for companies to make more models that are fully electric powered. If we have spent so much money for infrastructure for the gas-powered vehicles in the last 100 years, isn't it now time to invest for the infrastructure of the electric vehicles, like better batteries and quick charging stations for the upcoming 100+ years? I would love to buy an electric vehicle, but I don't know how many charging stations or battery swapping stations I will find in the US today. And I definitely do not want to get stuck on the highway, get towed, and wait 3 hours for my car to charge. Improving electric grids, making them programmed for the best efficiency and the best distribution of power, making them smarter. Developing charging stations that use direct current and can be fully charged and can fully charge the cars in less than 30 minutes. Battery swapping stations to extend the range of the electric vehicles, like how gas stations work for normal cars, and even green charging stations that use solar panels and even wind to charge cars without tying into the grid are all things to consider for the success of electric cars in the U.S. Electric vehicles have the potential to have a great effect on our environment and our economy, but we would have to put in the initial investment. With the help of the government and other companies, so much can be done, but it hasn't. I know that you're not going to just go out and look to buy an electric vehicle today, but they're only going to get better. And that's only if we say we want them.